Take your Bibles, if you will, turn over to John chapter 4. We've been looking at love demonstrated. How was love demonstrated by you or through you this week? You know, that's not a bad question to ask ourselves. How have I demonstrated love this week? How has someone demonstrated love to you? And do you recognize it when it's demonstrated? You know, we are going to look at an account this morning that many people have heard of. The woman at the well, you may call it the Samaritan woman. But what a great example of the love of Christ and the demonstration. If we're supposed to be in Christ's likeness and we're supposed to demonstrate love as He does, we're going to look at some things this morning and how that love was demonstrated. What is your desire, first of all, to demonstrate love? You know, there's so many people around that are seeking and searching to fill a void in their life. There's something in their life that they know is missing, and it irritates them. It's this craving that's put within us to fill a void. Many are trying to fill a void where they lack love. Maybe they don't understand the love that's being shown to them. Maybe they are afraid to let someone that close. Maybe they're afraid to be honest. But there is that void and that seeking and that searching. It's kind of like when you make 5 trips to the refrigerator. Have you had those days where there's just something that you want? And so you try a little bit of that banana pudding. And that wasn't it. So you go back and you try some fruit. And those in your family are watching you make that trip back and forth to the refrigerator, wondering if you're ever going to quit, if you're ever going to go sit down. And somebody might at some point say, "What are you looking for?" Well, I don't know. You know, I just can't. I want something, but I don't know what it is. And that's just an irritating feeling. But then, a couple days later, you eat and you're like, "That's what I was looking for the other day. That hit the spot. That was exactly what I was looking for." You know, maybe it's that way in people's lives. They're just continually searching. They don't really know what for. They just know that there's something that they need. In many cases, it's the love of Christ that they need. And where is that love demonstrated? It's through His Word. It's through you. It's through your demonstration of love. But how many of us are willing to demonstrate love in the way that Christ demonstrated love? John chapter 4, when therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus Himself baptized not but His disciples, He left Judea and departed into Galilee. And He must needs go through Samaria. Then cometh He to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. There was a defined direction here. Christ left, but He said, the Bible says He needs go through Samaria. Why did He need to go through Samaria? Because in reality, many Jews literally went around Samaria. The Jews and the Samaritans didn't have a good relationship. The Samaritans were viewed as half-breeds because back in earlier days, the Assyrians had captured Israel, taken them into captivity. They had brought in Gentiles into the ranks, and the Jews began to intermarry. They began to worship the pagan gods that came with the Gentiles. Disrupted a lot of things for a lot of people. Changed their direction. But from that point forward, there was a dissension between the Jews and the Samaritans, to the point that a Jew didn't want to be seen around a Samaritan, didn't want to interact with a Samaritan. Christ was about to redefine the direction of the mentality of a lot of people. He was about to do something that you'll see later in the chapter they marveled at. Why would Jesus talk to this Samaritan? Don't you know who they are? Don't you know what they've done? Don't you know? Christ knew. He knew exactly. And He knew that He had a need to go through Samaria. You have a need today. Many have needs today. But Christ can meet those needs. There was a definite direction, a defined purpose, a defined direction for where He was going. He knew that there was a need. and he was going to meet that need. How many people are walking around today with those needs, but they become comfortable with that need? This woman knew who she was. We'll see what she's done. But there's not one among us today who hasn't done something. We're not perfect. We're not made perfect. We don't have the capability to be perfect. That's why Jesus died on the cross for us. That was what he was about to present to this woman, the way of salvation, the understanding of what everlasting life meant, what living water means. Because he was going to explain to her that there was more to life than what she saw. More than what she defined as her own need. There's a purpose in every place we go. What if Christ had chosen to go instead around Samaria rather than through Samaria? Because when he went through Samaria, he knew exactly where he was going. He went to this well. He knew what the well represented. The well represented fresh water, satisfaction, the meeting of needs. What better place to meet a need than at a well? This well had history. But history was about to change as well. What is about to change in your life? You see, the well was a common gathering place. Now, it's interesting because the Samaritan woman, she came at noon. Most people, that was the heat of the day, most people were coming at a cooler time in the day. But see, Christ knew what time of day it was. He knows what time of day it is in your life. He knows what you're facing, why you're facing it, how long it's going to last. He knows this. But do you know Him? Not only do you know Him, but do you recognize Him as Lord of your life? Has there ever been a time when you realized that this same Christ, who was going to die on a cross for the sins of the whole world, that He loved you just as He loved this woman? He's demonstrated that love through His death on the cross. It's a matter of saying, Lord, I am a sinner. We're going to look at the way this conversation goes. But all the way back in history, there had been this dissension. How many people do we look at in our lives that we look down on? Oh, we're not going to let everybody know that. But are there places you go and people you look at and you just think, well, I don't have time. I don't need to go there. I don't need to talk to that person. You may have that little feeling in your heart that person's hurting. That person has a need. It's obvious. But you convince yourself, I don't need to go there. You see, Christ could have gone like so many others. He could have gone around Samaria. You can go around the needs of others. You can go around your own needs. You can pretend they're not there. You can pretend that they're not as bad as you think they are. You can pretend that they're not relevant, but they are just as relevant as your need for Christ. Number one, in salvation. Number two, is part of your everyday life. You see, this was the middle of the day. Where are you at in your life? Because in this situation, in this account, we look at it being midday. How many people are well into their day of their life, but not knowing who Christ is? Not recognizing their needs, not being willing to say, I have a need. Because if we say so often that we have a need, sometimes people think that means weakness. Why can't you just meet your own need? Why can't you just get your own self fixed and do what you need to do? And in many cases, that may be part of the truth. But the truth is, fully, there's a need. You ask yourself this morning, what is my part in meeting the need of someone else that I know of today? You see, and what our mind generally goes to is somebody who has a physical need. Somebody who has a financial need. Well, what about those people who have a spiritual need? You see, we categorize needs and then we judge those needs. And we determine as judge and jury whether those needs are valid, whether they need to be met, whether they even have purpose. And then what we do is we begin to pronounce sentence. We determine whether we will, whether anyone else will, or whether they deserve it. But in reality, the need still exists. Whether by fault, whether by choice, No matter what the reason, it's there. Do you have needs? Some deeper than others. Some more temporal than others. You see, not only was there defined direction, there were defined needs. Christ knew that there was a need there, and not only did he know, what if he had not been sensitive to the defined direction? How often are we not sensitive to the need? Maybe it's a need that we've heard over and over and over again. And again, we just sit there and we say, I'm going to determine it. How many times do we look at God and say, God, show me what I need to do? Because oftentimes what we need to do may be different than what we want to do. But why is it that we don't want to? Maybe it's because we've been burned. You see, this Samaritan woman was about to have a conversation. She didn't know where the conversation was going to go. But there were some questions that she was about to encounter. How many times do we feel the need to do something and just not approach it? But Christ approached it. Verse 6, now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Did Jesus go there to sit by the well because he was tired? Because if that was the case, he could have sat down anywhere along the line, couldn't he? He had been walking, he'd gone through these other places, and he could have picked anywhere along that road to stop and rest. But instead, he waited until he got to the well, and by sitting down, he showed interest. Interest in what was about to come. It wasn't just a place to sit. He could have chose anywhere in that town to sit. But he sat at the well. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, here become the questions, here they start. How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And you begin to see she defines her place in life, her position in life on two different settings. Number one, I'm from Samaria and Jews don't talk to Samaritans, so why are you talking to me? Number two, I'm a woman. And in the culture of the day, why are you talking to me? Little did she know the conversation that was about to evolve. Christ knew exactly where the conversation was going to go, and he had begun it with interest in her. He didn't walk in and say, hey, how you doing? I'm Jesus Christ. I want you to know who I am before I begin this. He asked of her. How many of us are more concerned about the needs of the other rather than who we are and what we can do at that moment in time? Sometimes we don't know the other's needs because we haven't begun the conversation. Because sometimes we're scared of that conversation. Maybe this is the type of person that you wouldn't normally talk to. Does that mean they don't need Jesus? Does that not mean that they have needs? Does it not mean that those needs need to be met and you have possibly the opportunity to do that? But again, we got to go back to the sensitivity to that. Am I concerned? Why was Christ concerned about this woman? Because she had a need. She had not recognized her full need yet. She recognized her needs on less than a spiritual level. This woman was well known. But she was saying, why are you speaking to me? What is it about me that holds interest for you? You know, some of the people who have the biggest needs are going to question what your agenda is. Why are you doing this for me? What do you have to gain from this? They may even start comparing you. You know, other people have tried to help me. And they may have those walls built, and you may not be able to accomplish what's needed in that one setting. But how many times have you walked up and sat down to next somebody and said, hey, how's it going today? Oh, Pastor, I do that all the time. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, but you don't really care, do you? It's just something to say. It's a greeting that we become accustomed to. Have you ever stopped to think what it would mean if you actually meant what you said? Had an evangelist friend of mine, that older guy. he would wait until somebody asked him how he was doing. He would say, I'm dead and in the bed. And they would literally go, oh, good, I'm so glad to hear it. And he would just kind of nod in acknowledgement. He said, I've done that so many times. He said, people are so used to saying what they say just because they say what they say. When was the last time we looked at someone and said, no, how are you really doing? Had that conversation with a receptionist a couple of weeks ago. You could just hear it in her voice. Something was going bad that day. I don't know. But I said, how's it going today? She gave the regular answer, oh, fine, everything's fine. I said, no. Take a moment and listen to my question. How are you really doing today? She began to cry. She said, nobody cares. I've been doing this for 30 years and not one person has ever done what you just did. Was it going to really change my day how she was really doing? We don't know each other to this day. It was just a receptionist. But somebody showed that they cared a little more than normal. And there's no telling what she was going through or what was happening. And how many conversations do we have every day that we don't bring them into their needs into it? Well, that's none of my business. Especially, I'm on the other end of the phone. What are they going to do? Tell me their life history? But they might have a need. And was it an accident that you spoke to that person? How many people do we work with and we have no idea what their needs are? Well, you don't understand. I don't really want to know the needs of everybody around me. True enough. But there come those times when those needs need to be met. And they're carrying a burden. They're walking around day to day with a burden that they're not going to share. But have you ever looked in their eyes? Have you ever seen them when they're off by themselves? Body language says a lot. The problem is nobody watches. She was curious as to why Christ was speaking with her. She had a history. We'll see more of that in a moment. But she also had to realize that there was a purpose for this conversation. But she was focusing on the wrong thing. She was focusing on the well. When you begin to look at the focus of so many people, you see their focus is in the wrong place. They may be focused on their need. They may be even focused on the need to meet that need. But are they focused on the one who can meet that need? And do they focus on you as an opportunity to meet that need? You see, she wasn't just simply talking to him, but he was listening to her. You'll notice that Christ never asked a pointless question. He often asked questions that made you think. We see it right here. She began questioning. Why are you talking to me? What interest do you have in me? When you begin to consider that fact that there was interest. Verse 10, Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. He's pointing out that you don't know who you're talking to. Had you known, you would have asked a different question. The woman saith unto him in verse 11, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us this well and drank thereof himself, and his children and his cattle? And Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. The needs that many people have, they try to meet, but it's a temporary fix. He's still dealing with her at the level that she's looking at, that she's defined. But he's giving her an important fact. A simple fact, not complicated. If you drink from this, you're going to get thirsty again. How many people have the repetitive need that they can't quench their thirst? And it just keeps happening. And you have the ability to look at them and say, you know why that's happening? Because your focus is in the wrong place. You keep doing this and you keep ending up thirsty. You still have the void. You're still trying to figure it out. But you're looking in the wrong place. Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in a well of water springing up into everlasting life. There's a difference between what's temporal and what's eternal. And too many times the needs that people have, and oftentimes the way we try to meet their needs, often satisfy simply the temporal need. What are you doing to invest in the eternal aspect of their need? It's not what they're doing that needs to change. It's who they are that needs to change. And the only one that can change who they are is Jesus Christ. The only one that was going to change this woman and her lifestyle, because that's what we want to focus on, is the lifestyle and the things that they do and the wrong that's being done. But what needs to change is the person's heart. You don't have the ability to change that heart. All you can do is make suggestions. All you can do is point them to the Word of God. But you keep letting them drink from your opinion, your idea, your advice, that's just going to make them thirsty again. They're going to end up having the same problem time after time after time. But you point them to Jesus Christ. You let Jesus Christ explain to them who He is. Christ explained to the woman who He was. You don't know who I am yet. But what He was going to say in a moment was, I'm He. I'm the one that you seek. I am the Messiah. Verse 15, the woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Give me that water that you're talking about, because evidently the way I'm doing it is wrong. This water, you're right, I just keep getting thirsty again. Jesus saith unto her, go back to verse 14. Be reminded that whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst again. Springing up. Constantly afresh and anew. We're going to have those times where we may find ourselves thirsty. But those times when we find ourselves thirsting and in want are the times that we're not drinking of the living water. We've found a replacement for it, something that, like from the well, that will satisfy that momentary need. But joy is like that living spring of water. You ever had a good drink of some spring water? Then you go get you a taste of that nasty tap water. And you find yourself what? Thinking back to the spring. Wow, that was good. Oh, it was cold. It quenched my thirst, and it was so clear. It tasted so good. You know, we spend too much time thinking back on the spring water than we do drinking the spring water. That living water that brings joy and satisfaction to life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst. I'm tired of thirsting. Jesus saith unto her, Go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, now it was the woman who was going to speak. What did she say? The woman answered and said, I have no husband. She told the truth. You know, there's too many people walking around with needs that aren't willing to tell the truth. They're not willing to acknowledge that there's some issues that they haven't addressed. And what's interesting was she told the truth that everybody else already knew, including Christ. Do you think because you're in a certain spot in life that Christ doesn't know what's going on? He knew that the need was in Samaria, did he not? He knew the road to Samaria, did he not? And he knew the woman at the well, did he not? Now, after all of this, here comes her part of the conversation. And she told the truth. Verse 17, the woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. You see, he not only knew her, he knew her story. But did he turn and walk off because of who she was? He'd already spoken to her as a woman and as a Samaritan. Now, look at the situation. She's got a reputation too. You know, sometimes it's those people with the reputation that have the biggest need. They're the most fearful. They may appear to be the most hardened, but there's a cry down deep within. Why do you think she had 5 husbands? We don't know. We're not told. But evidently, she or they was looking for something that didn't happen. They were looking for a sense of fulfillment that didn't exist. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that saidest thou truly. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive thou art a prophet. You might think about something, because how does this guy know who I am? I've never met him. I've never talked to him. He hasn't asked me anything about who I am and what I've done. Something different about you. How many people do you talk to with a need who you're able to discuss their need and they perceive something different about you? The answers that you give, the approach that you have, the concern that you have, the desire to see their need met. Do they see you as different, or are you just one of everybody else? There was something different about Jesus Christ. She didn't know what it was yet. She couldn't put her finger on it. She knew that she wanted that everlasting water. The woman saith unto him again, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh, when ye shall neither in this mountain nor at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Jesus saith unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. You know who you're looking for. You know what you're trying to accomplish. You're looking for this God. I'm he. You know you have a need. You know that you're looking for something. You see, again, the Samaritans hadn't worshiped properly, all of them. But he was making it known that God is the true God. Verse 27, and upon this came the disciples, and what? And marveled that he talked with a woman. Yet no man said, What seekest thou, or why talkest thou with her? So they sat there and they didn't say it, but they thought it. They marveled. Why is Jesus talking? How many people have seen you try to help someone who began to marvel and say, why are they trying to help that person? Or have they seen it done enough that someone else could look and say, I know why they're trying to help that person. And it's not just their physical need they're trying to meet. You see, that's a Christian. They talk about Jesus Christ and how he can meet your needs, how he knows your needs and how he can. Is there somebody that marvels at you? Who can't figure out why you're always trying to help those people in need? Not just the physical need, but that everlasting need. Jesus saith unto her in verse 21, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh. We need to make sure people know, in a little different aspect, there is an hour coming. There's an hour of death. There's an hour that might be the rapture. It's an hour that we don't know and we can't anticipate. But these needs relate to that hour. Verse 28, the woman then left the water pot and went her way into the city and saith to the men, Come, see a man which told me all things that ever I did. Is not this the Christ? And they went out of the city and came unto him. Not only were her needs defined, but a new direction was defined as well. Here was a woman with a reputation and everybody knew. And she went and she told them, you got to come talk to this guy I just talked to. You got to talk to, this is the Christ. She now knew. And what did she do? She began to tell, I had a need. He knew all my needs. He knew everything about me. And He met my needs. And there was such excitement in her that what did they do? Number one, she went and talked to the men. What was she known for? Having multiple husbands. What level of respect did she demand? None. She just walked and told them, this is what happened to me. And for the people who are afraid to share with others what their needs are, all it is I had a need. And Jesus Christ met my need. And I don't know what your needs are, and I don't know your history. We don't know as Christ knew her. But don't we know that there's a need? And if we can help meet that need, why should we not? That's love demonstrated. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. Jesus Christ loves you. He died for you. And what happened was that idea, that concept, that realization, it got some attention. You see, the Bible doesn't say, oh, they nodded at her and said, great, I've seen her before. Oh, well, there she is again. They saw something different, and it got their attention. And they left the city and came unto him. What impact are you having today? Through the love that you demonstrate. You see, it wasn't that people were drawn to her. They were drawn to who drew her. How many people can Christ use you to draw to Himself? By meeting them where they are. Understanding they have a history. Understanding they have a need. But see, we try to fix it. We try to meet the needs. And there are needs that God will enable us to meet. But the greatest, the grandest need that they have, we fall short of providing for. I'll meet your need. What about if we start as simple as it is and as old school as it is, if we simply started saying, hey, you know what? I think you need to know somebody that I know. I think you need to know Jesus Christ. Or even, hey, what are you doing Sunday? You want to come to church? We all got needs. I know a whole church full of people who got needs. Why don't you come let Jesus meet your need? We can invite to all kinds of things, can't we? Hey, there's an event down there. Man, they're going to have food. They're going to have fun. We're going to have... Somehow or another, church gets separated from that. But what a great opportunity to say, hey, I recognize you got a need. I'm not going to hammer you in the head about your need. Now, there are times when Scripture says this is wrong, and people understand oftentimes what they're doing is wrong. But sometimes it's a matter of just starting that conversation. How are you today? Is there a need that I could pray about for you? Just getting to know somebody. How many of us live in a neighborhood that we don't know half the neighbors around? Oh, well, I sit on my porch. I don't really want to know that neighbor. Or I know enough just by what I see, and yeah, he probably needs to be in church. Then why don't you get him there? You see, we've lost that. Day after day, week after week, churches are closing. If we're meeting the needs of people, then how are churches closing? Oh, well, you know, there's this and there's that, and there's always going to be something. Don't you realize that at the beginning of the conversation, she starts talking about how Christ didn't have anything to draw the water out of the well with? You see, that could have been a distracting question. She could have headed off down talking about the well. You know what's great, though? Christ wasn't interested in the well except to prove to her that what was in that well really didn't matter. Everybody knew that the water was in the well. He knew that he didn't bring anything to draw because he wasn't going to draw that water only. He was going to draw out of her the recognition of where she was in life, the realization of it. And from that, she could then have the everlasting water by understanding who he was and how he related to her need. Not just a relation to the need, but Jesus Christ was the answer to her need. What about you today? Are you looking at your needs only? You see, Christ asked for a drink. Was that really what he needed? He could have probably gone a little ways further without a drink. He knew she had a thirst. He knew that she had a need. But what about you this morning? What is your need? Is it one that doesn't satisfy? You tried, you've defined it, you've met it, but it's been time after time after time. Have you had that conversation with another to define their need, to determine what that is and how you can meet it, or how you could point them to the one who could? If you bow your heads, close your eyes. What about you this morning? What is your need? Don't allow yourself to concentrate only on that need. What you need to concentrate on is the depth of the need. Has there been that time when you recognized who Jesus Christ was? When you recognized your need was greater than you could fix? Greater than you could meet? Maybe you've realized that the need in someone else is greater than you can meet. But God can meet that need. It's a matter of being able to say, I recognize that I have needs. I recognize who Christ is. That my need, though temporal, is related to an everlasting need. Have you shown someone else your desire to help them in ways beyond just satisfying that momentary need, but bringing them to the point where Jesus Christ could make them realize their need and their lives would then change? And the impact that we saw was to go to others and let them see the change. What a great opportunity this morning to consider how we demonstrate love and how love has been demonstrated to us. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the love that you demonstrated to this Samaritan woman at the well. And Lord, in turn, the demonstration of the same love that we have to offer every day. Lord, we tend so often to look at who deserves it and who doesn't, and whether it's a real need or a perceived need. But Lord, could we just be sensitive to your direction? To define the needs that are there, and then to do what we can to meet those needs. If nothing else, Lord, simply to point someone to you, which is the greatest opportunity that we've ever had. Pray that you'd bless us now as we go our way.